Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France, and of course, you good old boys in Africa. You know we love the Big C tribe. We love you in Africa. The Big C, there's no one we love more than you good old boys down south in the land of the free, in the home of the brave, on a beautiful May 23rd, 2018. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, right now, that we were feeling a little empathy for the boys up north in Canada because you're not singing "Woo Canada" any longer. I think, they're kind of missing you just like they're missing themselves being in the Stanley Cup playoffs, Charlton.
Yeah.
And even in the NBA playoffs, you had two teams that made it to the destination that they did, but they weren't able to get to the finals. But I guess the Blue Jays still have an opportunity, so we can't give up on them yet. It's still early in the baseball season.
Yeah. Well, this is for all my friends up north that said that Drake was a bigger singer and a better singer than Big C Sports. That good old boy named Maxwell. Remember that song he sang? How does it feel? Okay, I don't even want to try to compete with Maxwell.
Let's move on to the next segment, please.
Yeah, I don't have the price that Maxwell had. I may look like Maxwell, but I don't have the price, Big C. A lot of good things happening in the world of the sports universe with some NBA basketball. Just fantastic. We have the NHL looking at 7 games. I think the NBA, the way that game was called last night in Golden State, they want to get 7 games also, Big C. We know Major League Baseball's having its thing. And there's nothing worth talking about if you can't bring a little bit of politics into the world of the sports universe. As we tell women, we've been doing this, Big C, for 3 years. We started Big C Sports. We've been telling women all over the universe that you gotta stand up for what you want to, and don't wait for some man to give you anything. I want to say congratulations to Stacey Cunningham. She became the first female, the first woman in its 226-year history to be the COO of the New York Stock Exchange. They've had 67 presidents. Big C, what does that mean for women? Instead of waiting for men to give you an opportunity, Big C, she's running the whole stock exchange, the COO. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that's what running the U.S. finances when you look at it. To have a woman in that position, Charlton, it just shows the leadership and intelligence ability of women, Charlton. That, for years and decades that they've been put on the back seat saying that they could not handle these prominent positions. But we've seen it in a lot of Fortune 500 companies, Charlton, over the last decade, how women have advanced to the top echelon of these corporations. And it's marvelous. It shows the advancement of the American society.
Yep.
That you put your trust in women. We've seen them in politics, run for president, these state senators and governors, Charlton. The women are the backbone of society. I don't care which country you're in the world.
I agree.
Because without women, the rest of us don't exist, Charlton.
Yeah.
They nurture us from birth, even in the womb, Charlton. They nurture us all the way through life.
Yeah.
They get us to the point. They're the forefront of the education process. When you look at our teachers in America, Charlton, in the early developmental stages of life, it's led by females.
Yeah.
Females are the backbone of American society, and I want to give kudos to this young lady, Charlton, for advancing to that position.
Yeah, you think about it, too, with all of the push that men have made in society to be entrepreneurs, to be the vanguards in society. Oftentimes, just like the movie Hidden Figures, there are always women that had an ancillary role. And I don't think any role is better or more important than raising children. Because even when people are out working, in the old days where we had these sexist laws where women could not work in the workforce, competing against men, I always have to pay homage to the African American women and men, because the African American women in this country, while maybe not rising to the COO of the New York Stock Exchange yet, we have had a first lady African American in the beautiful and elegant Michelle Obama. And she represented with class the first lady of the most powerful country in the universe. Michelle Obama did that. So while the NASDAQ has always been a place where America makes its money. We talked about that thing yesterday about the Supreme Court and making betting legal for all the sports leagues. But I want to ask you again, what does this mean for young girls all over the country of all colors when they look at the NASDAQ runs our country? How the NASDAQ goes is how our paychecks go and our workforce goes. What does it mean for women to actually see that? They've seen a black president, they've seen an African-American first lady, now seeing a woman who's the COO of the New York Stock Exchange. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, if you look at the tech industry, there's been a lot of women that have been the CEOs of those companies. You know, Google, of Yahoo.
Yeah.
You know, that women have taken the forefront and led. You know, and so to make this move into the financial market, Charlton, to show to the woman, I mean, when you think about it, most men go to work and even when the woman is at home, they bring their check home. She's handling the finances. And so they've done that from an early age, Charlton, where they've made sure that the household is stable. Now they've gone into corporate America making sure that that's stable. And to be, you know, in charge of the New York Stock Exchange, you're making sure that America and the world is stable now.
Yeah.
Because you have the world on your shoulders. And so this is a real aspiring situation to be able to ascend to, regardless of gender, Charlton. But to have a woman go to this level and be celebrated, America should be proud, especially with all the backlash that women have gotten, Charlton, in the last year and a half in this country.
Yeah, and I think it's important to mention, I don't think it's by coincidence that this Me Too movement, it can't just be like a candle. It's lit for a moment and then it goes out and no one relights it. This candle has to be like the lighthouse. It's always glowing. It's always glowing so you can see it. Stacey Cunningham, she began a career at the New York Stock Exchange in 1996 as a floor clerk. So for people who think that you want to start out anything, you don't always start at the top. She was doing her thing back in 1996, getting her feet wet. And I hope that she'll be like many of the other vanguards in society, that she will open that door, that financial door that a lot of men have always kept closed. Not closed in the way that Matt Lauer kept the door locked, people, but for the men that marginalized women for 226 years. Think about that. For 226 years, we've had the NYSE, and this is the first time that women have given birth. They birthed about every person on the planet except for Donald Trump. We know he's test tube baby, Big C. They still can't trace his DNA, Big C. But for all the women that are trying right now to decide, what do I want to do in life? What do I really want to be? You don't need a man to make you successful. You don't need to hide behind some man. That old stupid thing they used to say behind every good man is a good woman. No. Out of every good woman's womb comes a good man. You can Google that, okay? That's paying homage to the women who give birth to every person on the planet, except for Donald Trump, Big C, okay? We know that. But for the women who've done that and you've still been marginalized, I just think it's a sea change for our whole society that Hillary Clinton talked about. It's going to start happening in more areas. So again, congratulations to the New York Stock Exchange for opening your horizon and expanding your horizon to women. I want to touch on, I know you watch Grey's Anatomy, Big C. It's a TV, it's kind of a, you know, these TV doctors and saving lives, and it tells you what happens in hospitals. And for those of you who think that sports and politics don't mix, don't think that your sports owners don't pay attention to the NASDAQ every day, for you dumb ones out there that don't want to mix sports and politics. But Big C, a gentleman by the name of Jesse Williams, he was a keynote address at the Kapoor Center in Oakland, California, advocating diversity in the tech industry. Didn't we just tell you that Intel's part of this virtual reality gear that they're giving out? They gave it out on March Madness. Now they're doing it for NBA basketball. That's Intel. That's Silicon Valley. Now, this brother, Jesse Williams, African-American man, instead of being quiet and clapping for Silicon Valley, he's asking that they open up the doors to allow diversity to enter. The same way the athletic teams have done it. There was a time when they had Jim Crow laws too, but they've opened up doors in athletics. We're trying to get them to recruit more people of color to understand Silicon Valley and virtual reality and artificial intelligence. Big C, that's a big push, and we need to make that. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, we're probably the last country here in the United States that opens the door for equality in the electronic age, Charlton.
Yeah.
You know, every other country has an open door policy, and they base it on intelligence, not complexion. You know, here in the U.S., a lot of things have lacked diversity.
Yeah.
But when you go around the world, Charlton, they're inviting minds in. You know, the U.S. will cultivate people from other countries and bring them in, but they never put them in the forefront. There's always a development of technology coming from them, but we have someone else making the announcements that make it look like they did, just like in the movie you talked about, Hidden Figures, Charlton.
Yeah.
And you know, there's a lot of minority minds in this country, Charlton, just need the opportunity. We've seen this throughout the decades here in America.
Yeah.
Without opportunity, people cannot succeed.
No.
Doors have always been closed because the fear is that somebody else is more intelligent than you.
Yep.
That is always, I mean, you go back to slavery in America. They didn't want slaves to read.
No.
Because then you could not fool them any longer.
Yeah.
And if a slave read it, it could cost you your life. Because they knew that these people were intelligent just by the things that they were doing and being able to communicate.
Yeah.
But they didn't want to have them say that they were equal to them, so they devoided them of the opportunity to expand vocabulary, Charlton.
Yep.
But over time, we've seen that even in the technology realm. If you go back and you look at things in America that have patents on them,
yes,
and look how many minorities have patents on them, Charlton. And you know, when we look at blacks who have succeeded, I was on a flight not too long ago, Charlton, and it was the first time in my life, and this was on Alaskan Airlines, that the entire crew was African American.
Yeah.
The pilot, the co-pilot, all the flight attendants. You think about this Alaskan airline, the name of that airline alone. But here it is, when you think about minorities, you always have to do something better than everybody else because people will point a finger at you.
Yeah.
And so this was the first time that I'd ever seen an all African-American flight crew in America.
Yeah.
But I even want to take that a step farther, Charlton. You think about women pilots in America. That unfortunate incident that happened last month on that Southwest flight.
Yes.
That had a female pilot, and she lost one passenger on the airline did. I'm not going to say she did.
Yeah.
But, you know, you think about the courageousness of this former Air Force pilot who was in charge of that plane, how calm she was, Charlton, to be able to handle that situation. But being a woman, if she had failed, think about the backlash in society that would have came towards her.
Yeah.
People would have said, well, it was a woman pilot, that's why they had catastrophic failure. No, it was a woman pilot, that's why she was able to land the plane successfully and stay calm and not lose any more life than what that flight did, Charlton.
Yeah.
Women have always ascended to the pinnacle and have done things better when they had that opportunity than most men, as well as minorities. You think about the Tuskegee Airmen of World War II, Charlton. Never lost a battle, never lost a pilot.
Nope.
You think about that. And yet white pilots didn't want them to fly with them.
Yeah.
And you look at the catastrophic loss of white pilots during World War II. But these guys believed in unity and teamwork, Charlton, that they had to have each other's back.
Yep.
They fought as many battles as anybody else during their time in battle in World War II. But because they cared, they did not lose anybody. And they did not receive the same acclaim and prestige as other airmen did, Charlton, even though they were the most successful group of World War II.
Well, I think that's a very salient statement. And I wish a lot more young men of color knew that when we think we just can be athletes, Big C, that the Tuskegee Airmen, just an example of excellence flying. I do want to point something out, too. And it's just like anything else, acknowledging Stacey Cunningham as the first chief operating officer of the New York Stock Exchange. You think about that, 226-year history, and the first time a woman. Well, if I look at Facebook, and we say how Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, they have their own issues over the years, and they're trying to do things to make things better. But Facebook, when you look at their minority employment, it's only 3%. Now, everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people have a Facebook account, Big C. And Mark Zuckerberg, he's a young man. He's not like an old guy that was raised in Jim Crow. And I know when people talk about diversity, sometimes if you don't make some noise and say, wait a minute, we want an opportunity in your place of employment too, even a young guy like Mark Zuckerberg that gets the benefit of the doubt of being egalitarian, but at the same time, he can make a conscious effort to diversify his workforce. You know, you look at a rose garden, it has more than one color of flower. So for someone like Mark Zuckerberg to only have 3% of people of color are considered African American, that's almost egregious, especially when you look at California, the population of California, how diverse we are. But again, I want that people to think about, you can recruit people from India. You can recruit people from the United States. And I remember one time, and for the people that say, yeah, well, maybe people don't apply. I remember back in 1996, I did a reading for Oracle. You know, the name that's on the Oakland Coliseum for the Golden State Warriors? They love my voiceover on the phone. In fact, I was doing some interning at KGO Channel 7 over in San Francisco. They love my voice over the phone. In fact, we had several calls. And because they love my voice over the phone, they invited me to come down to Silicon Valley and do a reading. I'll never forget the chilling effect that happened when I walked in the doors. I said, hi, my name's Charlton Curry. I'm here for the appointment. And I'll never forget, they kind of looked at me and didn't say anything. For about a good 20 seconds, which felt like 20 minutes. And I said, excuse me, I'm here, Charlton. I'm here to see the person I was set to see. And the lady at the front said, oh, you're Charlton. Because they didn't expect an African American. I guess they wanted me to sound like a lot of the guys I hire on TV. And sometimes, I mean, everybody has a different voice pattern. But it was good enough to get the interview. But when they met me, they had this enmity toward me. And I'll never forget that. It didn't stop me. But people, Big C, how often does that happen to African Americans? Your thoughts?
Charlton, that happens more frequently than what you think. I know in my younger years, Charlton, I would speak to someone over the phone prior to showing up in person. And people would always say you sound different over the phone. So yeah. I sound the same. You know, it was ironic that they couldn't say you look different than what you sound.
Yep.
They would just say you sound different over the phone.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, it's happened and it will always happen, Charlton. I think one of the things that hurt a lot of people in the job searches nowadays is because of the internet, and people post resumes on the internet.
Yeah. And
then all of a sudden they show up in person, and all of a sudden that job opportunity has been taken or just filled, or the position is closed now. You know, you get that quite often as minorities.
Yep. And,
you know, it's an unfortunate thing that, you know, what minorities have always had to go through in society. You know, we even get it in sports. You know, the way that minorities are treated in sports. It's like the devaluing of running backs in the NFL.
Yeah.
Because 90%, 95% of the running backs in the NFL are minorities.
Yeah.
You know, you got a few white fullbacks, but it's been a devalued position. I know prior to the draft, everyone was talking, well, you don't want to waste the first-round draft pick on a running back. There's no reason to draft a running back in the first round because they're dispensable.
Yes.
They're saying that black players are a throwaway commodity. But if anybody ever go back and look over the last 10 years. Look and see how many white quarterbacks have been drafted. Not just in the first round, overall in the NFL.
Yeah.
Look how many white quarterbacks have been drafted. How many have been successful? Maybe 10% of them.
Yeah.
10%. Now, you think about that. That's a poor number. If you're an organization and you got these draft experts, and even your buddy Mel Kiper
on
ESPN,
yeah.
You know, who was saying the guys that can't miss. He's a franchise quarterback.
Yes.
But here it is, 10% of the white quarterbacks that have been drafted over 10 years have played in the NFL.
Yeah.
The rest have been cut and gone.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a perfect scenario, Charlton. Look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, they drafted Kyle Rudolph out of Oklahoma State. And all this backlash came through the media. Well, Ben Roethlisberger said he's not going to mentor him. Okay?
Why not?
Last year, the Pittsburgh Steelers drafted an aerospace engineer in the 4th round out of the University of Tennessee.
Yep.
Joshua Dobbs.
Yep.
He doesn't need mentoring. Just show him. That's it. He's more intelligent than anybody in the organization.
Yes.
But he's an African-American quarterback. 2 years prior to that, they drafted a quarterback out of Oklahoma, Landry Jones.
Yep.
But, all the talk has not been about Joshua Dobbs. When you talk about a quarterback who's supposed to be cerebral,
Yes.
who's supposed to be able to pick things up and understand and read, if you look at his numbers during the preseason last year, Charlton, he was off the charts. He performed as well as any rookie quarterback during the preseason, as well as Deshaun Watson, better than Mitch Trubisky.
He's amazing.
But he didn't get the look because he was in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
But they draft another quarterback, and nobody mentions his name at all, even though he may be the most intelligent quarterback in the NFL.
I think maybe he could probably teach a lot of guys in the NFL how to build a spaceship, Big C. So, it's just about opportunity. And again, I've always wanted African American men to know, especially the ones who are scared. I've always admired men who stood up for what was right. And I still see a lot of guys that have a tremendous platform on TV and radio that did not exist 30 years ago when men did speak up. And that's why we have our opportunities today, because people spoke up. Even going back 50 years ago, the great Rosa Parks spoke up. And, we always say Google. I think we've done as much free advertisement for Google as anybody. But I also want Google to Google this. Google that you only have 2% African-American employees. 2. That's like 2%. You can Google that, Google. Because if people of color don't ask for the opportunity, not just marching in the streets, but shout people out on the airways. Just like we look at the first opportunity for a woman to be the chief operating officer of the New York Stock Exchange. While a lot of dumb people just want to see who won the game and reading the score, how fast somebody is and how many points somebody had in the game, you had a woman being given something for the first time in 226 years, and not even some of the female broadcasters that are in a TV or radio position even acknowledge it, because they're either ignorant or they don't read. But if you can't acknowledge the first woman in the history of this country that is now the COO of the New York Stock Exchange, which manages all companies in the United States, how they make their profit and loss. But they're so busy in telling you how big and tall somebody is and how fast somebody runs the 40. Big C, we got to advocate as African Americans, because we're only Big C Sports going to do it. The other guys won't do it. But I hope that Google can Google that your black participation rate in the workforce is only 2%. That's embarrassing for the land of the free, the home of the brave. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's just like the White House will say, African-American unemployment is down at an all-time low, which I debate those numbers, Charlton. I'd like for them to show that to me, as well as Hispanic unemployment numbers are at an all-time low. I think what has happened is that so many people have stopped looking in the workforce. The unemployment has run out because they're not there, Charlton. You see people looking for jobs all the time. And so to have a woman with this advantage to fight through this futility, Charlton,
yes,
that has always been put in front of her, and all the women that have advanced to the top position in any company in America, Charlton, I take my hat off to you. I would show you my hair, but I don't have any. But, when you think about these women, Charlton, they're sticklers for perfection.
Yes.
That's what we are. When you look at women, they're sticklers for perfection. And what I stated earlier about that Southwest pilot, they don't have the opportunity to fail, Charlton.
No.
Because everybody will point a finger at them. You look at how many men have failed in every position there is in America, Charlton, whether it's in sports, whether it's in politics, whether it's in life. But they get a pass.
Yeah.
When women have that same depth of failure, Charlton, it's written. And then, they want to say, well, we've given one an opportunity and she failed, so we don't want to give another one an opportunity. But yet men get opportunities time and time again, Charlton.
Time and time again. That's true.
Even after failure, they get time and time again because it's that buddy system.
Yeah.
And let's keep it going. We want to keep our buddies together. That's what happens in that situation.
Well, I think that would happen in that situation. And again, for Stacey Cunningham being the first woman COO in 226 years. That's egregious in a country that considers itself fair and in the paragon of virtue. And for Facebook to have 3% black employment, Google only 2%. You guys can Google that. You can Google your outreach programs, and don't say you can't do it because you do it for the athletic departments. I mean, Stanford actively recruits athletes of all colors if you have the GPA. A lot of their athletes are African American. So you can't say you can't find people that come out of the right schools that can help you learn that. You bring people to your organization to give them training. You train people. But if you want the diversity, you go after it. If you can go find people in India, I'm sure you can find people in the United States. I also want to pay attention to one of my COOs growing up, my mother. I think a lot of black men, for every sports athlete that does an interview, they want to thank their mom. They thank their fathers too, but they really thank their moms. Well, my mom growing up has been my COO. I remember birthing me into the world and making sure I had food, clothing, and shelter. Not just me, but for my siblings and nieces and nephews, and showing me what it was like to be responsible, and that I wasn't going to go out and be a knucklehead, and that I had to read, and I had to go to school, and all those things that sometimes we take for granted. Mothers don't have to teach you that. They can let you grow up and be wild, like a wildflower in the garden. But I remember being always shown to do your best through good and bad times, treat people fair, and it'll come back to you. Pray, have faith in God, but work as if it depends on you. So I always appreciate my mother for being my COO, and for everybody with mothers out there, hopefully you can give the same praise to your mother. So again, congratulations to Stacey Cunningham, and also really appreciate Jesse Williams for having the voice to speak up the way so many African Americans won't do it. Even though they got TV and radio, they just won't do it. And the shame is, in about a year or two, they won't even have a job, and that platform may be lost. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, voice is the greatest thing. I hear what you said about your mother. One of the things that mothers always teach their children is how to read.
Yep.
How to be in the forefront of knowledge. And everybody who listens to this show can attribute their early reading to their mother. Whether it was reading them a nursery rhyme, a bedtime story, teaching them the ABCs, your mother was there for you, Charlton. And so she was that educator. As I talk about, the number one educators in America are women.
Yeah.
People send their children off every day to be nurtured by some other woman.
Yes.
That's in the school system. And they care, Charlton. That's the thing about these women care about your children when you send them to them.
Yep.
So that extension of a family continues on into the school system.
Yeah.
And it's not just education, Charlton. They talk to them about the sports that they're involved in. It's not just the male teachers, Charlton. It's the female teachers.
Yeah.
Because they make sure that this child of yours has a GPA that's high enough to compete.
Yeah.
So that they can play sports. Not just participate in the classroom, but be able to go on and extend themselves in the athletic realm, Charlton.
Yes.
Women are so powerful in this country, in everyday life, and we just take it for granted.
Yep.
People who are listening to this show, whether you're thinking about your mother, your grandmother, your great-grandmother, your wife, your daughter, your sister, your cousin, there's a woman in your life that is very integral on a daily basis.
I agree.
And you thank them. Without even thinking about it, we thank them. But when you see them, thank them even more. Pick up the phone and just say thank you.
Yep.
Because they are there. They allowed us all to get to the point where we are in life. When you made a statement a few weeks ago that people say, well, I got to this point by myself in life. No, you didn't. There's a woman that gave you a start in life, that helped you get through life. When you scraped your knees, she was there to wipe them off and kiss them and put a Band-Aid on them, Charlton.
Yep.
She was there to make sure you had your breakfast before you went to school. Made sure that your clothes were on straight, that they were clean, made sure you brushed your teeth. Women are the backbone. And you mentioned that many African-American athletes, they always say, hi, Mom.
Yes, they do.
I even did it when I was a player. If I was on TV, it was like, hi, Mom. And people would always say, well, why you never say hi, Dad? We do. But the admiration that athletes have for their mother is a different level.
Oh, yeah.
Dad is there. Dad is almost like your friend.
Yeah.
But Mom, I remember the other night when Steph Curry made a statement. about something being his house, his mother's house, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
You know, and his mother sent out several tweets to him, also talking about she was going to show up to wash his mouth out with soap.
Yeah.
I remember those days when I was a kid.
Yeah.
You used profanity that, whether it was your grandmother, great-grandmother, your mother,
Yep.
there was a bar of soap.
Yep.
So your language became very clean after that.
Yeah, I think grandparents were using that vibranium. They had vibranium in the soap, Big C. It made us all pay attention. But again, I want to say congratulations to everybody doing things to make a difference in the lives of other people. I also want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. For every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with Big C Sports. Whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, a high school team, or your mom and pop soccer league, when you reach out to them, let them know Big C sent you. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. Big C, Sterling Brown, guard for the Milwaukee Bucks. In January, I think, arrested. He had something about a double parking, and he got in trouble at 2 a.m. in the morning. I know a lot of people go out at 2 a.m. in the morning, not because they're at a nightclub, but sometimes they don't want to be seen, Big C. What happened to him, Big C? Your thoughts?
Chelsea, he was driving while black. You know, let's start that right off the bat.
Yeah.
He was in Milwaukee. It's hard to hide when you in Milwaukee and you're black.
Yeah.
But this is an incident that occurred 2 a.m. in the morning, which he admitted he was in the wrong. He double parked in a handicap zone at 2 a.m. in the morning outside of a Walgreens store. All of a sudden, 5 police officers pull up. 5 cars. Think about this, plus 2 sergeants. 2 a.m. in the morning.
Wow.
For being double parked outside of a Walgreens.
Wow.
You know, that you went into to pick some stuff up. Now, Milwaukee in January, I don't know if anybody's ever been to Wisconsin in January, but you can have single digits weather.
Yeah.
And so his hands were in his pocket, you know, en route to his car. And, you know, he was told by the officers that, you know, he had double parked, he apologized, and he was waiting on his ticket.
Yes.
This incident took some 10 minutes with all these officers around. There ended up being 7 officers around him. All of a sudden, they rushed the guy. He's just standing there. He's not doing anything. He's just standing there. And they take him to the ground. They wrestle him to the ground. Then they want to tase him while he's down on the ground. He wasn't fighting, but he was arrested for resisting arrest because he was just standing there.
Wow.
Now, they knew who he was because they ran his plate. That's the first thing you do.
Oh, yeah.
As an officer, is that you run somebody's plate. You don't walk up there. And plus, he's driving a luxury vehicle. You know, and I guess they might have assumed right off the back he may have stole it, but it was his.
Yep.
And, you know, but he gets arrested for resisting arrest. He gets tased. Think about it. As a black American, and this is becoming more and more daily news in America, and people are saying, well, you know, these guys are over-exaggerating. It came out today, they released the body cam of the situation, Charlton, that the young man was just standing there. All of a sudden, these police officers, I guess, felt threatened because he wouldn't do anything. He just wanted to stand there and kept apologizing.
Wow.
And so that wasn't enough. So we got to create a situation there. So they tackled him to the ground, and then they said, tase him, tase him. While he's there, just laying on the ground. So they tased him, cuffed him up. Then they stood him back up. After that, he's just still standing there.
Wow.
You know, wanting to know what did he do. He admitted that he was wrong for double parking. I mean, and for double parking in America, as a black person, you get tackled to the ground and tased. You think about that. Where's the fairness? We just had a kid down in Santa Fe, Texas,
Yes.
walking around with a trench coat on the back of it printed "Born to Kill." No one did anything to him.
No.
He killed 10 people before anybody decided to react to him.
And see,
But,
yeah, go ahead, see, go ahead.
but while he's walking around demonstrating a threat, white America said, well, he looks like us, so he has to be harmless. You know, he's only expressing himself. But and let me give you a cross-reference incident, Charlton.
Yes.
Lenny Dykstra, former all-star second baseman in the major leagues, last played with the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yes.
Nicknamed Nails. Known for steroid abuse. Tuesday was arrested for threatening an Uber driver with a firearm.
Wow.
Arrested now. Not tased, not beat up, just arrested. He was arrested on weapons and narcotics charges. Wasn't tased, wasn't beat up. Think about this. You threaten somebody's life with a firearm as a white male in America, a disenfranchised white male in America. If you're brandishing a firearm, you have a better chance of living than a black male walking down the street or standing in your grandparents' backyard.
Well, you know, I think we talk about how we congratulate so many people in this country for standing up for those who are disenchanted. Because mainstream TV won't do it other than maybe one half of a show. If half, maybe a half or two, maybe a quarter of a show. And I think when I look at what you just said, that gentleman that had the terrorist attack down in Texas, in Santa Fe, Texas, and I'm still waiting for Trump to call white men who look like him, you know, SOBs or terrorists and murderers, but he hasn't done it. He still has time, because if that were a Mexican or African American, I'm sure he would have, just Google Central Park 5, you'll know what I'm talking about. But those gentlemen, they had shootouts with police, with law enforcement. They still were alive to talk about it, to even get some counseling or some type of therapy. Okay? That's just something you got to understand. So I tie that into this. The NFL just came to grips, I think it came out today or yesterday, with their stance on the national anthem. And they're still missing the boat. They're making about standing for the national anthem. The military pays the NFL to do that on TV so they can get recruits, so they can recruit your kids to join the military and do whatever you got to do, okay? Donald Trump, they pay the NFL so they can recruit your kids to do what Donald Trump ran from 5 times. Google it, okay? Called deferment. Donald Trump didn't want to do what the military pays the NFL to convince your kids to do. And he says fire the SOBs for not doing what he didn't want to do. Big C, your thoughts on this new NFL thing? You got to stand up or stay in the locker room. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, the NFL, all they did was open up Pandora's box. They said if a player simulates any type of protest during the national anthem, is that they can be fined or suspended. Now, I'm trying to understand what would be the simulation of a protest. You know, if you hold your head back, you hold your head down. You don't put your hands behind your back, you put your hands behind your back. You don't put your helmet under your arm. There's no clarity on that. But what the NFL did that they did not realize what they did, Jonathan, they said if a player wants to stay in the locker room, he can stay in the locker room.
Yeah.
What happens if you only have 10 to 15 players on the sideline, Jonathan?
Yep.
Is that demonstrating a protest? The NFL did not realize what they were doing when they did what they did. And what they did was they allowed players to still protest. They said, well, the fans didn't like the situation now. So now when these players come out of the locker room, what is going to be the position of the stands, you know, with the fans? Are they going to be yelling? Are they going to be booing? Are they going to be chanting, you know, slang at these players that come out of the locker room, that don't come out for the national anthem? You know, this is Pandora's box, because what you're doing is saying that, okay, we don't want it visible on television.
Yes.
There is no reason that any broadcast company has to show the players during the national anthem.
Amen.
You can go to commercial. You have a ton of them anyway. But while the national anthem is being played, go to commercial, Charlton.
Yeah.
The NBA does that. They go to commercial. Major League Baseball does that. They go to commercial. They're not sitting there playing the national anthem unless it's the playoffs of the World Series.
Yeah.
And even now in the NBA playoffs, we're not watching the national anthem being sang, Charlton.
Nope.
We're not. But the NFL is politicized this issue themselves, telling players you can stay in the locker room. Which is more the distraction? the players being in the locker room because they're just telling you, we're not believing in what this policy is.
Well,
So we're going to stay in the locker room. And so when you start seeing half the team, Charlton, in the locker room, what's going to be the stance of the NFL at that point? Because the outcry from the fans is going to be the same.
Yep.
The outcry from your president is going to be the same. And so, other than addressing the issues on a real political stage
Yeah.
with politicians, saying that it's unfair. We just saw it with the Milwaukee Bucks player. How unfair social injustice is. That because you double park, you get tackled to the ground by 5 police officers.
Yeah.
I think everybody has double parked at some point.
Yeah.
Everybody, to a degree, has crossed over the line in a handicap.
Yeah.
Whether it's intentional or unintentional, people have crossed over that line. But at 2 a.m. in the morning, I mean, and granted, people with disabilities go out at all times.
Yes.
They're not shackled being at home. But at 2 a.m. in the morning, and this parking lot was empty. That's how we noticed the car, because the parking lot was empty.
Yes.
You made a concerted effort as a law enforcement officer to go after the individual in this car. Just like the NFL will make a concerted effort to go after the individuals who stay in the locker room.
Yeah.
This is a setup clause that the NFL has implemented. It's not an anthem policy. It's a setup policy. Because if this is what the policy is going to be, why didn't somebody sign Colin Kaepernick today?
That's a good
Because
point.
you just stated that today that if he has a protest, he has to stay in the locker room. And so why not sign him now? You have no excuse now not to sign this young man.
Yeah. And see, that's a very salient point you just brought up. I got to bring up this point again, and we'll touch a little bit on the NBA. But the Me Too movement wasn't about saying, okay, women are being sexually assaulted and sexually harassed. Even our president has many accusations against him. And they're not saying, okay, we're coming out to say it just so you can know we're saying it. They came out to say it so we could stop it. Not so we could just come and say it's happened, but how do we stop it? So what I thought the NFL could have done is, because the majority of their players are African American. Big C, what would happen if you went out to buy a car and 3 of the tires were missing? And the dealer said, hey, well, you know, it's okay. It's your imagination. They're not really missing. But you said, yeah, there's only 1 car tire on these 4 rims. Well, it's your fault. You're just complaining. That's not really what's happening. So when African Americans are saying this incident that you just described in Milwaukee is happening, the NFL to say, yeah, but we don't want you to talk about it. It's okay. You can drive a car with 1 rim. You don't need all 4 tires. And so when the conscientious men, and this is why I hate dumb men being the leaders. They ask dumb people who are intellectually vapid to stand up for anybody. They can't stand up for nothing but how do I get my next paycheck? They don't care about the next generation. Big C Sports does. So I hope the NFL do what you want with that. But what the purpose should be, how do you join the President of the United States of America for making some noise and getting some criminal justice reform passed the same way they made it legal to vote? We still haven't gotten gun control passed. We're still fighting to get some criminal justice reform in this country so that black men are not treated the way that we're being treated by law enforcement. Whether you take a knee or not, that's still happening. Don't you think they could have used their platform, Big C, for that? Talking to the president and the legislators that have laws in the books for that, more so than saying, well, you got to stay in the locker room, or if you come outside, you got to stand. We fixed the problem of Black Lives Matter. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, nobody wants to address the issue of Black America, because now
Unless you
make
play sports for them.
Black America relevant, other than just sports. That's the most relevant part of Black America, is its sports involvement. And that's what people want to praise them about. Not being social activists, not being political leaders, Charlton, but being sports leaders. That's where it is. You know, I'll give you another sports incident. Richie Incognito, who was suspended by the NFL a couple of years ago when he was in Miami.
Miami, yeah.
And for bullying and terrorist threats of teammates.
Yeah.
Okay? Gets in an incident in a gym down in Florida. Physical altercation. Huge man. Now, if the police are going to use tasers on anybody, that's the guy you use tasers on.
Yeah.
He was arrested, but he was not confronted by the police in a physical manner.
Nope.
They didn't tase him. They didn't tackle him to the ground.
And they didn't have 7 squad cars pull up on him either.
They didn't have a 7 squad cars for it. But he gets in an altercation with another individual. He's arrested. They give him psychological evaluation, Charlton.
Yeah.
That's what he's getting now. Psychological evaluation. He wasn't tased. He's not hit with resisting arrest. They give him psychological evaluation.
Yeah.
Lenny Dykstra wasn't tased. He's threatened a man's life with a gun. Carrying drug paraphernalia. Wasn't tased.
What color was Lenny Dykstra, Big C?
I think he kind of looks like the palm of my hand.
Okay.
Moonshine?
Moonshine?
As well as Richie Incognito.
Moonshine has a color? Is that what you're trying to say, Big C? He's a mason jar is what you're trying to say. So I think, and we'll touch on some NBA right after this, but I want to say, because the NFL could have gone to POTUS, remember, POTUS said fire the SOBs for taking a stand for what's important to their children.
The reason why he said fire him, Charlton, because you think about this. After the school shooting down in Florida,
Yes.
Marjorie Mason, all of a sudden he was an advocate for gun control.
Yep.
Okay? 93 days later, there was a shooting in Texas, Santa Fe, Texas. We haven't heard anything about gun control from the president.
But they passed
Not
gambling.
one word.
They passed gambling.
But you're correct. The Supreme Court can pass a gambling law that will allow minority athletes to be victimized.
Yep.
That's what they did. But they don't protect the children of America.
No.
They won't pass a gun bill to say that you don't need these assault weapons. And they did not arrest the father of this young boy down in Texas who had his father's shotgun and revolver. But they arrested the wife of the Pulse nightclub shooter, saying that she should have been aware of what her husband was doing. And if she wasn't, they think she was aware.
Yeah.
Even though she was acquitted in trial. But they're saying that this father in Texas is not accountable or responsible for the actions of his son using his firearms to go out and kill people.
Well, I tell you what, Big C, as we talk about the Me Too movement and the Me Too movement and the Black Lives Matter movement, President Trump didn't say fire the SOBs from the Me Too movement when they cried out about sexual harassment. They were just asking for it to stop and for corporations to stop and to fire the men who are sexually assaulting women. And that's happened. But when Black Americans stand up for criminal justice reform, people say, oh, shut up, you just complain and shut up and dribble. But I hope that people can tie the two together. Also, Sony buys a bigger stake in EMI Music for $2 billion. Okay? Think about that. Including Kanye West and Pharrell Williams. When the deal is closed, Sony will own 90% of EMI. Music, you think about that. There's a lot of African Americans in the music industry. Sony just buys a big deal of that while we're watching who won the game. Big C, I want to bring up, Cleveland and Boston. I mean, that's a game that is already underway. There's so much on the line tonight. Cleveland has a 1-point favorite going into this game. And I want to get your thoughts on what that means. The team that wins tonight will most likely win the series. I think Cleveland has a better chance if they lose tonight to go back and win in Cleveland and then win in Boston. I think if Boston loses tonight, they're not going to go back to Cleveland and win. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, Boston has been able to serve home court. You got to realize there was a Game 5 last year between these two teams, and Boston won the Game 5. They have a 9-game home winning streak in the playoffs, the longest since the Warriors lost last night in the playoffs right now.
Yeah.
They have held court throughout the playoffs. Charlton, they have not fared well on the road. But this is a game that is a wake-up call for them, Charlton, if they expect to advance.
Yes.
They cannot lose a home game to these hot Cleveland Cavaliers. You won 2 consecutive games. You're coming in off the road now, Charlton, with an opportunity to keep that stride going. Boston has to find a way to stop the Cavaliers, not LeBron. Let LeBron get his 40, 45 points.
Yeah.
He's going to do that. He's going to enforce his will. But you got to go and slow down JR.
Yeah.
You got to slow down Korver. You can't let Thompson run up and down the middle of the court and get easy baskets, Chauncey.
Yeah.
You got to stop that if you're looking at beating the Cavaliers. Don't worry about LeBron. Because if LeBron is scoring 45 points, Chauncey, he's not going to get double-digit assists. That's the thing you have to understand. He's going to take his teammates out of the game. So let him score. Force him to score. Let the other guys become idle, Charlton, and become complacent. So when it does come time for them to get a shot, that they won't be in rhythm.
Well, I think about LeBron. He must be the vibranium. I know he's chewing that vibranium tablets, Big C. I think it's a cream. They say that Barry Bonds was rubbing some cream on him and they accused him of all kind of stuff. I think if
I rub cream on my coffee and stuff.
You say you put vibranium cream in your coffee? Where can I get some of that stuff, Big C? Just tell me where okay, don't tell me because people might go and buy it out, Big C. But obviously, when you look at what LeBron has done in the playoffs, I just think about what we're watching. Monday, he passed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as the all-time playoff leader in field goals made. You think about that. He scored 44 points. He was 17 of 28 for Cleveland. Now, this is another thing. We talk about who's the best player. Is it Jordan? Is it Kareem? Is it LeBron? LeBron now has 2,368 made baskets in the playoffs. That's 12 more than Kareem and 200 more than be like Michael Jordan. And he's still balling. So when it comes to saying who's the best player, you got to look at King James. I know he has vibranium, and I think Kareem had it too. A lot of the guys that played in their higher self, they were drinking that vibranium coffee that you good old boys know about down south, but they don't tell anybody where to get it. But just that doesn't put a lot of pressure on him. And I want to ask you, Bixie, you've seen all the great performers. How does he keep doing that for the next 5 years, Bixie? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, his workout regimen that he has. I mean, when you look at his physique, I mean, this is a guy who cares more about his body than he does the game that he plays, Charlton.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he would not be able to play at the level he has for the decade and a half that he's been in the NBA.
Yeah.
But to consistently be playing this time of the year, that speaks volume about LeBron mentally.
Yes.
Even as much as physically, but mentally, to have the will to not give in, to not succumb to somebody or other teams. You see the weakness in other teams, Charlton,
yeah,
when LeBron is on the court, is that they have that look in their eyes, that the shoulders seem to slump a little bit when he gets in rhythm.
Yeah.
And when, he puts his team in the front and he has them on his shoulders, Charlton, you can see that other teams tense up.
Yeah.
I mean, great athletes have always done this regardless of the sport.
Yes.
You get a pitcher in baseball, like, I was watching Verlander pitch the other night for Houston.
Yes.
And right now he's reminding me of Bob Gibson.
Yeah.
You got an ERA under 1.5. That means that batters, when they walk up, are in their mind saying, I'm not getting a hit.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
I hope to put some wood on the ball, but I don't expect to get a hit.
Yeah.
And that's what you see right now with Boston.
Yeah.
When they played Game 4 in Cleveland the other night, and they went down by 5 or 6 points, you could see a little bit of swagger gone away from the team, Charlton. They said, well, let's try to conserve a little bit and get to Game 5 in Boston.
Yeah.
We'll look like we're playing hard, but we're not trying to run ourselves in the ground because they have momentum.
Yeah.
And at halftime, you could see the team basically had tanked.
Yeah.
They had given up.
Yeah.
In that they knew that if they could get to Game 5, that hopefully that home court advantage would work for them.
Well, I tell you what, there's a singer back in the day by the name of Frankie Beverly, and he sang one of my favorite songs. He said, I can tell by the look in your eyes. I mean, no, I don't sing like Frankie Beverly, but I still remember that song. I can tell by the look in your eyes. When you look at Golden State and you look at the Houston Rockets, I can tell by the look in your eyes, Adam Silver, that you don't want 5 games, and I don't care what anybody says about what I'm going to say. But my friend from Las Vegas told me this. I'm just repeating what he told me. I ain't giving out his name. But he says, Iguodala can't play. Only 1 point or basket scored on him in the prior game. And then Houston almost doubled up Golden State at home at the foul line. Houston said they played the most aggressive defense they've ever played, yet they get called for half the fouls. And I want to say, my friend Durant, that I love Kevin Durant, but the last 4 possessions he had were garbage. To have 2 steals in less than 2 minutes against Harden at half court, to shoot up a junk shot from the baseline and another junk shot from near the top of the key, it doesn't make any sense. It's as if my friend from Vegas is right. The NBA doesn't make any money if they have a 3-game one series going back to Houston. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it was amazing that when you look at Golden State and you look at their top 3 scores and you look at the shots they hit, they made 13 shots in the game.
Yeah.
The top 3 scores, 13 shots. They shot under 40% in the game between these 3, closer to 30. And you think about that in a game of this magnitude, that you were taking shots that were ill-advised most of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw Durant pull up one time for a 32-foot jump shot.
Why?
You know, in front of the, at the arc. And it's like, okay, Steph Curry turn around and shoot the 30.
Yep.
It's like the game before, your points came off penetration.
Yep.
Getting to the 10. You stopped doing that in game 4. When you make that move to the basket, basically you're unguardable.
Yeah.
Especially Durant. There's no one that can keep up with him with his length.
It was bizarre. It's almost
but
like
all of a sudden, you play the worst half of basketball that I've ever seen you play.
That was intentional.
And I'm not even talking about game 2. I'm talking about game 4.
Yep.
That this game, when they had the game, because when Golden State has a lead on you at halftime, normally it's over.
It is over.
And all of a sudden, you disappeared in the second half. Durant, the last 8-9 minutes of the game, he was atrocious. And when you talked about the back-to-back throwaways
Yep.
to James Harden, who
doesn't even play defense.
Not that he won't.
Yeah.
He can't play defense.
No.
And yet you made him look like an all-defensive NBA player.
Yep, that was intentional. You're not going to hear that on other sports because we're going to speak the truth. And you say you want the truth. Well, you can't handle the truth. The great Jack said that. Big C, I do want to congratulate Houston because, you know, where I grew up, if you put some garbage out on the porch, a hungry dog will come by and eat it. Okay? If that dog hungry, Big C, you can put that slop out on the porch. They'll come by and eat it. They don't just walk past it. But that was a garbage game. And the NBA can do better. You know, I went to a show in Las Vegas one time. I was with some young folks, and they had this guy cutting people in half. Okay, it was, you know, it's make-believe. It's a show. And some young kids that are naive, they say, how do they cut the guy in half? And they take the suitcase and pull it apart, and then they put it back together again. The guy pops out. It's called make-believe, and I know sometimes you got to have some make-believe to get 7 games. Big C tonight, I know NHL, this is not make-believe, it's Game 7. Talk about your thoughts on NHL, who's going to play for the Stanley Cup.
Well, Charlton, this is the most interesting game. You think about the Capitals. They shut out the Lightning in Game 6 to draw it even for Game 7. But this is the most intriguing part about this, Charlton. You got the Las Vegas Golden Knights already in the Stanley Cup. You got the Lightning, who have won the Stanley Cup before, on the verge of getting there. You got the Capitals, who desperately need to be there from an NFL, not an NFL, but an NHL and television perspective, Charlton. Because what is the likeliness of having great ratings in the Stanley Cup when you're playing in Tampa and Las Vegas? The intrigue of having Las Vegas in there is cool.
Yeah.
But, you know, can the Lightning recover from being shut out in Game 6, going into Game 7? And they've already lost 2 games at home in this series, Charlton.
Well, I tell you what, if you like sports the way we do, I like it. I love it. Meaning, I like it. I love it. I want some more of it. Some good old country boy saying that, Big C. But I love vibranium in my coffee. If I could eat that stuff for breakfast, I would eat it every single day. And for all the people who love this beautiful country, I'm so proud of women making an ascension to the NASDAQ, the New York Stock Exchange, as a COO. Congratulations to Ms. Cunningham. I appreciate all the beautiful people that talk about Black Lives Matter, and they want to make sure that people have a chance, like Facebook and Google. Google your employment rate for African Americans. That's embarrassing. But for everybody that loves opportunity and you love the truth, you can get the truth here. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Bundini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you've got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, right now, all the sports beat people are talking about the OTAs in the NFL, about the players that are there and the players that are not there. That's fake news when it comes to football, okay?
Yep.
It's 99 days from today, college football's kickoff.
And you know the next number.
That's the real news.
Yep. Yep. I tell you what, Big Z, I love so much about the world of the sports universe. I love that we have this exciting time to talk about what's real. And I encourage people to Google everything we say about the games and everything the other shows say about these games, and tell me who's bringing it to your real. You can find out every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.